Good afternoon. I'm John Roberts, lead investor for Moxey's Wefunder campaign. While I've always been an investor in some form or fashion, my main enterprise until 2018 was a chain of gas stations, which I operated for just over 25 years. I had more or fewer at various times, but my peak was around 2003 to 2011 when I had over a dozen stations in Southeast Louisiana and over 100 employees. So my business life has now led me to be in a leadership role in Moxey, New Orleans. I've been on various boards and chambers over the years, but I'm really proud to currently be serving on the board of Raintree Children and Family Services, based in New Orleans, but that serves families all throughout southeastern Louisiana. I have 3 boys, including my newest addition, Johnny, who has just turned 9 months old, and I'm married to my wonderful wife, Jessica. I'm your host today, and I'm ready to put Moxey CEO Charlie Davis under the spotlight to get some in-depth answers about the opportunity to invest in Moxey in its bright future. Charlie, let's start off by you giving some background on yourself, your business career, and how you first learned about trade exchanges in general.
You got it. Thanks, John. Super excited you're on this amazing journey with us. You know, I've been a serial entrepreneur for about 25 years now, which is really hard to believe. But I started my first company when I was in college. I started a weekly newspaper, and ever since then, I've owned a small clothing business. I've had tech businesses. I've just fallen in love with the idea of building and scaling companies. In fact, it was through one of those businesses I first discovered the concept of barter exchanges. I was an investor in what's today an awesome web development and digital marketing company called GatorWorks. But back then, it was a really small business that we were just trying to get started. And my business partner discovered this idea and told me about it. And my first thought was, well, you know, this is America. You can't have your own money. That sounds illegal. You know, what have you gotten me into? But that started this really decade and a half fascination that I've had with alternative currencies and all the ways around the world people have found to buy and sell with each other, whether it's using money or some other system. And so I've really, over the last decade, done a rather intense study of this concept, both what's going on now and also what's been around historically. So that's really how I got involved. I fell down the rabbit hole about 15 years ago, and I haven't looked back since.
Very interesting. Well, why don't you fill us in on the last 3 years or so since you've become the CEO of Moxey? And one thing you got to include is that branding and how the name of Moxey, you were able to come up with that name, or the team was able to come up with that name.
You got it. Yeah, we get that question a lot. It's one of the first things I did about 3.5 years ago. And so Chip and Warren, 2 of my business partners, recruited me to help them scale what was then called Trade Authority and is today called Moxey. And we cared a great deal about the name. In fact, you know, I think I pestered Chip to death. Finally said, I don't care anymore. Just pick whatever name you want. But it was really important. We wanted a name with power. We wanted a name that would scale. We wanted a name that had depth to meaning. And so, true story, we went through more than 1,500 different names before we came up with the word Moxey. It was quite the process. I asked everybody I know. My kids came up with names. I'd go on vacations and I would talk to people about names. I was obsessed with picking the perfect name, and we eventually found it. And so Moxey is an abbreviation for the concept of medium of exchange, which, as some people know, is the core definition of money. But it also is short, it's easy to say, it's fun to say, and it sounds like a verb where you're Moxey this or Moxey that. And so we put probably about 90 days of work just into picking this name that we wanted to be this incredible name to help tell the story as we scaled from a small network in South Louisiana to one that eventually covers the globe. And so the last 3 years have really been about setting the foundation for today. It's really been about getting ready, repositioning the board, if you will, for what we've done so far, rebranding it to Moxey, and really getting ready to tell the world about what we've been working on.
Great, thanks, Charlie. And I always like the tagline, Moxey, money with an X factor.
It's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorites as well.
Yeah. So I know you have what's commonly referred to as a pitch, much like we'd see on a show like Shark Tank. And so would you be so kind as to share that with everybody now?
I thought you never asked. You got it. I'm going to flip over here and share my screen, and we'll get going. And we're going to do a high level, but well thought through overview of Moxey, and then have plenty of room for questions in the back end. So here you go. Your favorite word, John. Moxey is the brand, and I want to start. Actually with a meme. Right. This is 2021. It's the end of COVID, and so let's start with a meme that helps tell the story of Moxey. And so this is one of my favorite memes. It shows a guy starting a really tiny domino, which slowly gets to larger and larger and larger dominoes till this massive domino falls over, one that you can't even conceive because it's so big that such a small thing could have started it. And this is really the story of what we're doing. There at the bottom is the concept of barter. It's the oldest, known form of trade in the world, where whether you have cash or don't have cash, people are constantly bartering with each other. Fortune 500 companies do it. Mom and pop businesses do it. And so it happens all the time, but it flies under the radar. And so that's what we're starting with. But where we're going to end up, which is this really cool digital payment network and lending platform. But to get there, we have to start at the bottom, which is barter. So I'm going to unpack how and why we're building the most incredible barter exchange network you can find anywhere in the world. And that itself is enough to build a massively profitable company. But from there, what the next steps are. So barter, in essence, tries to solve the three most common problems that all businesses face. Most businesses need new customers, they need access to capital, and a lot of them have expiring inventory. And you might think, expiring inventory, what does that mean? That's a fancy word for things that if you don't sell, the value is going to go to zero. And you encounter these things all day long. A simple example is going to be a restaurant with an empty table during breakfast, during lunch, or during dinner. If nobody comes to that restaurant and sits down, that opportunity is just lost forever. You can never go back in time and sell it. The same thing is true for tickets on an airplane, for seats in a theater, or for rooms inside of a hotel. There's a lot of inventory in this world that's going to expire. We think that fruits and vegetables expire and milk expires, and it certainly does. But products and services also expire. The same thing is true for somebody's time. Whether you're a plastic surgeon or a plumber, if you have billable hours and projects that you want to work on, but no paying customers, once that time is gone, it's lost forever. So that's the focus of where Moxey starts. It starts in a really easy spot. It's not complicated or risky for a business to start by selling things that if they don't sell, they're going to expire almost immediately. New customers is critical for most growing businesses, and so is access to capital. We all heard stories about small businesses struggling to get money. I like to joke that a bank will lend you unlimited amounts of money the second you no longer need it. I've been in situations before where banks were competing to loan me money, and it was great, but I've also been in situations where no one would give me any money. And so it's hard to be in the middle ground. It's easy to be desperate for cash, and it's easy to have a plethora of cash, but Moxey is all about helping those businesses that are in the middle, that have access to funding, but not enough access to funding. And so the core thing of what all barter exchanges and what we do is to help businesses get new customers and get them better access to capital. And the better access to capital looks like when you join Moxey and you're willing to accept Moxey dollars for your products and services, we'll also take a chance on you. And what does that mean? That means that if you need to hire a consultant to improve your website, or you want to buy some radio ads, or maybe you need to pave your parking lot, or maybe your son or daughter just needs new braces. There are take 4,000 businesses inside of Moxey. And so when you join our network, we're not just going to give you new customers, we're also going to give you access to an interest-free line of credit to help you get going. So let's unpack that just a little bit. We're already successful. This is not, you think about that domino picture I just showed you. This is not the first domino. We're at least 4 or 5 dominoes into the system. We've already helped local businesses, over 4,000 businesses actually, sell more than $175 million worth of local goods and services. So that's a big number, $175 million worth of local goods and services. And today we're in 16 cities that stretch across 4 states. And as impressive as that number is, we're really just getting started. We got there with some pretty cool technology. So when you use Moxey, we want it to feel like you're using the American Express card, right? When I go to dinner, I take my wife or some clients out to dinner, and the fancy bill comes, I pull out my Moxey card, and I want it to feel like it's a great experience. So whether you're using the gold card as a Moxey shareholder or the more traditional Moxey green card, you spend Moxey dollars the same way that you spend traditional money, which means we have credit card swipe technology. We also have an app that functions similar to how Venmo might work or how Yelp in the early days might work. And then we have a basic point of sale system so that a restaurant or a dentist is taking these credit cards and swiping them through the system. But unlike Visa and MasterCard and American Express, which are on a large open network and doing business with people outside of their network, Moxey is more like Apple. We're custom building an entirely closed loop network. So we own everything end to end, whether it's the credit cards or the lines that they're going across. You never actually have to leave the Moxey network. So everything happens inside of our network. Let me introduce you to just one person, one of the 4,000 businesses. This is Vicki Little. She actually did a webinar yesterday helping businesses understand how they can use Moxey and the power of social media. But several years ago, she started a different company, and it was a commercial laundromat. And so Vicki was a first-time entrepreneur, and she was a single mom. And like so many businesses, she ran out of credit before her business was open. And so Moxey gave her an interest-free line of credit and put her in touch with 2 vendors, people who could come to her office, plumbers and electricians who were able to finish the work that she needed so she could open her business. And so day one or day -1, before this company was even open, before it was able to even accept customers, Moxey was there helping to make that happen. So this is one of my favorite stories. There are lots of them, but this is one of my favorite stories that really pinpoints exactly how Moxey can help a local business owner thrive. Whether you need new customers or better access to capital, when you join the Moxey network, you instantly get both of those things, and it is a powerful combination. This is our current footprint. We're mostly in South Louisiana, but we're stretching out into Alabama, Tennessee, and Mississippi. So we're now in 16 cities, and our goal is to stretch across the entire United States and then the world. But the first thing we're going to do is grow from Texas to North Carolina. And if you'll think back to last year when Clubhouse first started, it was incredibly hard to get a ticket, to get an invite. Or back about 15 or 20 years ago when Facebook was first getting started, Facebook focused on really intense communities. And from Facebook's perspective, what that looked like was college campuses, right? The idea is really simple. If you join Facebook and you don't know anyone in the system, it doesn't do you a whole lot of good, right? There's no one to talk to. And so they focused on launching very specific college campuses first. Then they came back together and they networked the whole system together. And so Moxey does the same thing. We're going to be planting flags in Houston, in Dallas, and in Nashville, and in Raleigh, North Carolina, in Pensacola, Florida, and in highly concentrated areas between 100 and 150 or 200 businesses. Once they join the network, the experience is incredible, and you almost can't stop people from joining because they're enjoying it so much. And so our job is to plant flags between Texas and North Carolina, spin up those individual markets, and then come back together and weave them all together. If you think about what we've done already in Baton Rouge, we do about $10 million in Moxey volume each and every year. So $10 million flows through our network of sales of local goods and services in the greater Baton Rouge area, the Baton Rouge media market. If you take the concept of those media markets and you stretch it from Texas to North Carolina, just based upon what we already do as of today, that number, just from a pure extrapolation perspective, is $1.2 billion. So we believe at a minimum, we can do $1.2 billion in volume from Texas to North Carolina, which would throw off $120 million worth of revenue for us. And I say at a minimum because once you start growing and scaling, the opportunities for larger businesses to participate becomes really significant. So the floor from Texas to North Carolina is well over $1 billion. Not that we're not excited about that, but really that's just one of the dominoes that we have to hit on our way to having an incredibly large and dynamic Moxey network. I want to talk for a minute about our team. I could not be more excited. Sorry, John, your picture didn't make the slide, but thank you for being the lead investor. So I've known about barter exchanges for about a decade and a half, and I have 25 years of studying this unique idea and specifically alternative currencies around the world. Chip was one of the original founders of Partners One here in Baton Rouge, which is a precursor to Moxey, and then is the founder of Trade Authority and the software system, which eventually became Moxey. Warren is an operator's operator. This is a guy that has bought and flipped and sold and scaled multiple businesses. So he's the kind of person you can drop into any business and overnight he can make it better. And Amy is just gifted at sales and marketing. She's worked not just around the country, but around the world, helping people to scale and build different platforms. And so the team at Moxey, these four guys on down to the people who lead our communities are just top notch. Whenever you're investing in a business or an idea at this stage, you're investing really more in the people, at least as much as you are in the idea and the execution. And so the people that we've assembled to our team are top notch. Let's go back to this domino for a second. I'm just going to touch on a little bit of what's coming next for Moxey. So there at the bottom, about 4 or 5 dominoes is where we are today. We have a dynamic system. We've done $175 million worth of goods and services. Here in Baton Rouge in South Louisiana, where I live, there are over 1,000 businesses just in the Baton Rouge area. That's a lot of companies. You can't quite live your life just on Moxey, but you almost can. You know, I can go to restaurants. I can have my grass cut. I can have my plumbing fixed. I have 4 kids, and I could not be more pumped to be spending Moxey dollars and saving cash on 4 sets of braces, which my wife tells me is coming very rapidly. But also my doctor, you know, takes Moxey. I just refilled a prescription. Unfortunately, I have high blood pressure. Thank you, Dad, for passing that along, a little bit of cholesterol. And so when I order my medication, I can order it from pharmacies that accept Moxey dollars. And so here in Baton Rouge represents the MVP or the case study of what's going to be possible, not just around the country, but around the world. And so that's what the beginning of our barter network looks like. But let's unpack, if you will, what's coming next. And so there are 2 concepts I want to briefly talk about, and we can talk about it more during the Q&A period. But 2 things called proof of value, and the other one is called dynamic reserve banking. If you think about the nature of money, it is incredibly challenging to figure out how many dollars should be in the system. And this is not a problem that's unique to barter exchanges. It's unique to every country that's ever existed in the world. You know, inflation is in the news a lot today, and high interest rates were in the news a lot in the late 70s and the early 80s. Every country 24/7 hours a day is constantly battling with what should their currency look like? How should they know, right? Should QE be bigger or smaller? And this is an ongoing debate. And so we have developed a concept called proof of value that allows us in real time, thanks to some modern technology we've developed, to determine the health of every single penny inside the Moxey network, and to know exactly who should have it and how much credit there should be. This is an innovation that we've been working on for years. It was incredibly challenging to develop, but allows us to prove mathematically how much currency should be in the network, which gives us the unique ability to scale as large as we want to do because of the systems we've designed called proof of value. The second idea is called dynamic reserve banking, and that's the idea that we have to have external assets to offset the internal assets. And so as Moxey grows, it's constantly buying things in the real world, whether those things are real estate, stocks and bonds, or Bitcoin. Those assets and the revenue we create over time is used to repurchase or to manage the currency on the inside. And so all of this happens in the back end with some systems that Chip and I have developed, and the user never has to see it or really know about it. All the user has to know is they have this really cool Moxey card that gets them into cool events, gets them discounts at restaurants, helps them get new customers and better access to capital. And so it is a seamless experience, but behind the scenes is an incredible amount of technology that we've worked really hard to develop. We have a patent pending application to help us manage the system that we built, and we are really pumped about it. And that's the system as it scales that'll help Moxey become the digital currency that Facebook might use, or that Square might use, or that eBay might use. As this currency moves from a barter network, it gets larger and larger, and what you can do with it becomes more impressive. I like the concept of when Toyota and Honda first approached the American market, right? When they first started selling those cars, they were the smallest and some of the most inexpensive cars on the market. But today, those companies are some of the largest and most profitable car manufacturers in the world. But they didn't start there. they started at the very bottom of a market. So when you're disrupting the market like we are, that's what we do. We have to start at the bottom. And the bottom of any market is barter. And specifically, it's buying and selling inventory that's expiring. And so Moxey is headed on this incredible journey that's going to end with digital payment networks and a lending platform. But it starts by building the most dynamic barter network that the world has ever seen. So we're raising $1 million right now. We're off to a great start. Not only are we in the top 20 companies on Wefunder, but I think we've already doubled in the first 3 weeks or so the average amount that most businesses raise through crowdfunding. So we've had a great experience with Wefunder. We love the whole crowdfunding concept. It is really well aligned to our mission to help local economies grow and small business owners thrive, because we want as many investors participating with us as possible. So John, let's stop there and go back and hit some of the Q&A. I know you have a few, and get through as many as we can from the viewers as well.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. That was a great presentation. I know Chip had mentioned already. Any of the webinar guests who'd like to put in a question, please go ahead and do that in the chat. But I have a few general questions that I think will be of interest to everybody, so we'll cover those first.
Absolutely.
So let's get right down to the basics. Why is Moxey offering stock for sale, and what will be the primary uses of the funds that you raise?
Thanks, John. There are 2 core uses. The first one is just expansion, sales and marketing. It costs money, obviously, to open new communities. And the second one is technology. We're really proud of what we have. We have over a decade's worth of data in our system. It's incredibly robust, but it needs to be amazing. When I first used the Uber app, I realized it was so easy to use. You could order a car on accident, you know? And so we want to make our technology so amazing that you can't wait to share with your friends. And so it's roughly a 60-40 split. About 60% of the money is going to go to sales and marketing expansion to help us open new communities. And about 40% is going to go towards upgrading our software over time. Got it.
So obviously the company could have sold stock in a private equity offering without using Wefunder. How is using Wefunder and why are we using Wefunder for this offering?
So I love the idea of crowdfunding. I think it is incredibly unfair that until recently, only accredited investors could invest in startups. You know, I've been investing in startups for quite some time, and I've started a lot of them. And 25 years ago, when I needed financing for my first business, I actually went to a payday lender. And I said, hey, I'm here to borrow money to start a company. And they said, we don't do that. And I said, well, that's not what the sign says. You know, outside it says, this is where you come to borrow money. And here I am. So I need some money. And I mean, this is a true story. I wasn't even being sarcastic. I literally thought I could go to a payday lender. Of course, I was 18 or 19 years old, you know, and borrow money. So it is challenging to get started. And of course, over time, as I matured as an entrepreneur and became an angel investor, now I'm really well versed in dynamics, but it's always bugged me that you have to be an accredited investor to participate in the best deals. And we really wanted to open the system up. And so Wefunder offers just an incredible platform that does exactly that. So not only are we doing something that's really well aligned to our core philosophy, but also we're about to build a global brand and a brand across the US. And so nothing could be better for us than to have hundreds or possibly even thousands of investors sprinkled across the country. By investing in Moxey, I think the first perk is $500. You're actually going to get a Moxey credit card. So you'll be poised and ready to go as soon as we open Moxey in your territories. And so a big part of Wefunder is not just helping the cause, but it's also trying to build hundreds or thousands of individual investors who can help spread the word about Moxey. You can become brand ambassadors for us.
So tell us a little bit about the Wefunder process. Many people may be familiar a little bit with regulation crowdfunding and think just anybody can get on the site and try to raise money, but there's a financial review required, there's SEC filings, and not very many people actually get approved, as I understand it, to be on the site. So fill us in on that process for Moxey.
Yeah, thanks. You know, I would say it was much harder than I thought it was going to be. We got the application. I thought, you know, we're smart. We're going to knock this out in like 2 weeks. How long can this possibly take? But as you know, it's a rather intense review process for CPAs to comb through your books for 2 years to really have well thought out financials. Videos that have to be made, marketing documents have to be made. I think it took us about 90 days to get everything done. And so I know Wefunder gets a whole lot of applicants, and I have no idea exactly what number of people are able to make it through the entire process. And so I highly recommend it to folks, but it was not simple. And so we're really proud to be on the other side and to have such success already.
Yeah. So, over the last year, for better or worse, during the pandemic, I was at home a lot and I got involved in following a lot of regulation crowdfunding. So that's led me to know things like in 2020, the average raise for a listing was only about $208,000. Now, Moxey is fast approaching $400,000 after only less than half of the campaign with a month to go. So what is it that you think that, why do you think Moxey has fared so well comparatively?
I can tell you exactly what it is. Our secret sauce is our members. The small business owners who are part of Moxey are what make it incredible, and they love being part of Moxey. And so with just a few emails that went to our network, we were able to raise the first few $100,000 to get things going. And so when you have that sort of base of support from your customers, it tells a whole lot. If you guys have a chance to go on the Wefunder page, I think you can click on a tab called What They're Saying About You, and you can read about 85 or 90 comments already from investors who've taken the time to tell you why they love Moxey. And I believe the majority of them are active customers. And it's a really great way just to see how much people love Moxey because they've been members for many years.
So as you mentioned already, it was a pretty intensive process to go through the last few months to get ready for the listing and appearing on Wefunder. You have any insights, any inside stories you want to share with the leadership team? Were there any arguments? Did the team grow closer? Is anybody on the way out?
I hope no one's on the way out. No one's confessed such a thing yet, John. It's been a great process. It was a really hard work, rather intense. It's definitely been a few intense weeks. We've been surprised by the number of inbound calls that we've gotten from investors that want to set up webinars, from angel networks that want to learn more about Moxey. It's a bit like drinking from a fire hose, if you will. But I think the team has only grown closer together. And I know I'm so more motivated today, even than I was 90 days ago. And you know me, how excited I am about Moxey. I dream about it at night. I think about it first thing in the morning. This company will either be successful or I will die, but there's only really two possible outcomes from this project. That's how passionate I am about building an incredibly fair, monetary network. And so I think our team has certainly grown closer together, but I know there's a lot more work to come.
So there are a lot of people in the regulation crowdfunding world who really believe that the acquisition of new investors and then those investors becoming advocates is as important or even maybe more important than the actual funds that are raised. So you talked about current customers being active participants in this, but there are new investors and new people to Moxey who are getting involved. Have you take the time to think about how that will affect the future growth and maybe markets that will first visit?
We have, yeah, we've been surprised. A number of investors have already reached out to us to inquire about opening territories, some in Texas, some in the Virgin Islands, some way outside of our zone where we want to get started. But it's been really encouraging, the enthusiasm we've had from these new investors asking us to send their t-shirts, wanting to know what they can do on social media. The investors are clearly interested, not just in getting a financial return, but they're interested in learning more about the story of Moxey and interested in getting involved and helping us become successful. And if you think about it, that's the same thing that a good angel or a good venture capitalist does as well. It's not just about the check that you get. It's about the expertise and the assistance that comes along with it. And so we've been just blown away by the support we've gotten from the investors already.
So I've seen a couple of questions pop up in the chat so far that are pretty pertinent. So the first one I saw was, how are taxes reconciled? I guess there's, of course, income taxes and sales taxes, depending on the business that come into play for Moxey. And actually, maybe most people don't know that this is all fully reportable. So why don't you touch on those subjects?
It's a great question. It's one of the really common questions that we get. In fact, it's one of the core reasons that barter is the gateway to really build a true digital currency. It's because the US government and most countries around the world recognize barter transactions and have at least for 30 or 35 years put together a rather robust system of tracking it, and includes taxes. And so if you earn money with Moxey dollars, you pay taxes just like you would if they were US dollars. But also the flip is true. So if you spend money, if you spend Moxey dollars, you're going to get a tax deduction. And so the simple answer is you treat Moxey dollars the same way you would treat US dollars when it comes to taxes. And all the members in our network at the end of every year get a 1099. And so the revenue that's flowing through their system is reported just as it is with other 1099s. And it's a similar system around the world. And so taxes are, the tax structure and the way the government handles this is a big part of what makes Moxey successful.
And then I saw another question that had been brought up. So with the current raise, I believe it said, what's the current runway for the company going forward?
The good news about Moxey is we've been around for a while. And so a lot of our leadership team are also investors. Myself and Warren, we're investors in the business. And so from a cash flow basis, the company will be able to keep chugging along based upon what we've already raised, because it was chugging along before that. And so what this is about is really about scaling. That you can tell from looking at our financials that the cash flow is tight, but we have a really small overhead. And so we don't think about it in the traditional way. If necessary, we'll lower our expenses as much as necessary to keep growing. So based upon where we are right now, Moxey has enough cash flow to push through. But our goal obviously is not just to make it. We also want to get as close as possible to $1 million. The higher that number gets, the faster we can open new territories. But even at $400,000 is enough money to do the software upgrades that we need and to start opening the next round of communities.
I don't see any more questions in the chat right now. Is there anything else you'd like to cover, Charlie?
John, I really appreciate you helping to make this happen and believing us for the last year or so as we work to get there. I would say that the more people have time to research Moxey, the more they'll fall in love with it. At the surface level, it's a really simple idea. We help businesses sell their excess capacity. We help companies get new customers and better access to capital. And that is a story as old as time. And it's something that almost every company in the world needs. I say almost because we've all seen those businesses where you have to get up early to get in line to buy their products and services. It's rare, but there are some businesses who literally don't want any new customers. They can't handle it. But for the 99.9% of the other businesses in the world, they work really hard to get new customers. They offer discounts. They have promotions like kids eat free on Tuesdays. They use Groupons. They go on Amazon.com and pay 15% just for the privileges of selling those goods there. And so Moxey is a simple, easy to use platform that works for most businesses out there. That's the easy, simple part, and it's exciting. But the more time you have to look into Moxey, the more time you have to learn about the concept we've invented called proof of value, the more you want to research dynamic reserve banking, the more you want to unpack how the financial world works, the more excited you're going to get about Moxey and the bigger this opportunity is going to seem. So thank you guys for so much for being here with us, for answering these questions. I know one question I saw earlier is, if you've already invested, can you invest more? And the answer, of course, is yes. There's actually, I think, no limit to what an accredited investor can invest. And there is a limit based upon your income that Wefunder will tell you for any investors who are not accredited. But if you've already invested, you're more than welcome to go back and invest more than one time. And also tell your friends. We're going to post this link on our YouTube channel and also on the Wefunder page. And so we hope you guys will help us keep sharing this story. We are so excited to keep building Moxey and scale it to a global level.
Thanks, Charlie. And we did get another question in there. It's a forward-looking question, so I know that we have to be careful the way it's answered. But the participant wanted to know, how long do you think it'll be before Moxey is nationwide?
We hope over the next 2 years or so to be opening markets between Texas and North Carolina. And once that's covered, then we'll start going out nationwide. It's really important that we have focused growth. Technically, Moxey could open in Topeka, Kansas tomorrow. We have the ability to open anywhere. The reason we don't is we want people to have an amazing experience. We want to create so much demand that there are folks waiting in line to join Moxey. In fact, here in Baton Rouge, for example, we often have waiting lists for photographers and for dentists and for lawyers. right? The network is already so powerful that business owners will stand in line so they can be a part of it. And so that's the atmosphere we want to create. And so the first few years is about growth from Texas to North Carolina. And then we're going to open up to the rest of the country. And we're also going to open up to the rest of the world. We are in a hurry to launch in South America just as much as we want to launch in Northern California.
Yeah, I have some friends in Costa Rica who are ready for us to head down there as soon as possible.
Yeah, I
Well,
keep telling my wife we're going to go on some cool vacations around the world and spend our Moxey dollars. Let's do it.
yeah, that'll be an upside for sure. Well, Charlie, it's been great hosting the event with you. I've loved being involved for the last 3 years. You know, I've known you for 15, almost 20 years now, and this is the first time that we've been able to work together in this fashion, and I've really enjoyed it. And so I thought you did a great job today, and appreciated the opportunity to host this for you.
Thanks, John. Appreciate you as well. Looking forward to next time.
Thanks to everybody who participated.